Isaac Richardson. On February 5th, 2014, 20-year-old Isaac Richardson sat in his London hostel room scrolling through Facebook. A notification popped up on his screen. He had been nominated for Neck Nominate, a drinking game spreading across the UK and Ireland. The rules were simple but dangerous. Film yourself downing extreme alcohol in one go, post it to Facebook, then nominate 2 friends within 24 hours. What started as college students chugging beers had evolved into something deadly. People were mixing spirits, drinking while driving or swimming. The peer pressure was intense. Isaac decided to accept. He bought white wine, whiskey, vodka, and lager. In his room, he mixed them together in a large container. The mixture contained over 30 units of alcohol, more than 3 times what doctors consider binge drinking. He set up his phone to record and press start. He lifted the container and began to drink, chugging the mixture down as friends cheered him on. Isaac finished and slammed the container down. For a moment, he smiled at the camera. Then his expression changed. He stumbled backward and grabbed a chair. His face went pale, and he started sweating heavily. Friends asked if he was okay, but he could not form words. His legs gave out and he collapsed. Someone called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but Isaac was barely breathing. They rushed him to the hospital, pumping his stomach and trying to flush the alcohol from his system. His blood alcohol content measured 0.42%, 5 times the legal driving limit. At that level, the central nervous system shuts down. Breathing becomes irregular, heart rate drops dangerously low. Isaac Richardson died in the hospital that evening. The autopsy confirmed acute alcohol poisoning. His liver could not process the massive volume of alcohol consumed in such a short time. The coroner ruled his death accidental but noted the role of the social media game. Isaac's mother spoke to the media afterward, refusing to blame his friends but emphasizing the dangerous peer pressure. The game faded quickly after his death and several others that same month. Acton Beale. On May 15, 2011, 20-year-old Acton Beale from Brisbane, Australia was hanging out with friends at an apartment building. It was late at night and the group had been drinking. Someone mentioned planking, the internet fad sweeping social media. The trend involved lying completely flat and rigid like a wooden plank in unusual locations, then photographing it for likes and shares. What started as park benches had escalated to rooftops and high ledges. Acton wanted something more extreme. He walked onto the 7th floor balcony. His friends followed, some pulling out their phones to record. The balcony had a waist-high railing separating it from a straight drop to the ground. Acton announced he was going to plank on top of the railing. Friends told him it was a bad idea, but he brushed them off. He climbed onto the narrow, metal railing and positioned himself. His body went rigid, arms pressed to his sides, legs straight. He held the pose perfectly still while friends snapped photos. The railing was only a few inches wide. After several seconds, his balance began to shift. His body weight tilted forward. He tried to correct by leaning back but overcompensated. His center of gravity moved past the point of recovery. Acton Beale fell from the 7th floor balcony. He plunged roughly 70 feet before hitting the concrete ground below. The impact killed him instantly. Friends screamed and ran downstairs, but there was nothing they could do. Police investigated and determined alcohol was a contributing factor. Acton became the most widely publicized death from the planking fad. Andrew Finch. On December 28, 2017, 28-year-old Andrew Finch was at home in Wichita, Kansas with his family. It was a quiet Thursday evening. Andrew had no idea that hundreds of miles away, 2 strangers were arguing online about a video game. The argument started over a Call of Duty match with a $150 wager. One player, Casey Viner, wanted revenge. He reached out to Tyler Barris, someone known for swatting. Swatting involves calling in fake emergencies to trigger armed police responses at someone's address. The caller reports a violent crime in progress, hoping to see the chaos unfold. Barris agreed to swat Viner's opponent. The opponent gave them a fake address to throw them off. That address belonged to Andrew Finch, who had no connection to either player. Tyler Barris called 911 from Los Angeles. He told the dispatcher there had been a shooting at the Wichita address. He claimed he had shot his father, was holding his mother and brother hostage, and had poured gasoline throughout the house. The call triggered an immediate response. Wichita police dispatched their SWAT team and surrounded the house. Officers took positions with rifles drawn. Inside, Andrew heard commotion outside. He looked out the window and saw police everywhere. Confused, he opened his front door. Officers immediately began shouting commands. Andrew stepped onto his porch, raising one hand to shield his eyes from the bright lights. He was not holding anything. An officer thought he saw Andrew reach toward his waistband. The officer fired a single shot. The bullet struck Andrew Finch in the chest. He collapsed in his doorway as family members screamed. Police rushed forward before realizing he was unarmed and badly wounded. Paramedics tried to save him, but the injury was too severe. Andrew died at the scene in front of his family. Police traced the call to Tyler Barris, who was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Casey Viner received a shorter sentence. The case became a landmark example of how online harassment can turn deadly. Train selfie. On March 8, 2014, a 21-year-old man climbed onto a stationary train car near Madrid, Spain. He had seen photos online of people posing on train roofs for dramatic selfies. The trend was gaining popularity on Instagram. Young people would climb onto parked trains, strike poses with the city skyline behind them, and post the photos for likes and followers. Warning signs around the railway clearly stated the dangers. High-voltage electrical wires ran directly above the trains, carrying 15,000 volts. The man pulled himself onto the roof of the train car. He stood up carefully, finding his balance. Overhead power lines hung just a few feet above him. He pulled out his phone and held it up to frame a selfie. The angle was not quite right, so he stood on his toes to get more height. He adjusted his position, moving slightly for better lighting. As he posed, he reached his free hand upward, either for balance or to make a gesture. His fingertips came within inches of the overhead wire. Electricity does not require direct contact to arc through air. At 15,000 volts, the current can jump across several inches of empty space. The man's hand passed the critical threshold distance. A massive electrical discharge arced from the wire into his body. The shock was instantaneous. 15,000 volts stopped his heart immediately and caused severe burns throughout his nervous system. The force threw his body off the train. He fell roughly 12 feet to the ground beside the tracks. Witnesses nearby saw the flash and called emergency services immediately. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but the man showed no signs of life. The voltage had caused cardiac arrest and extensive internal damage. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident became one of the earliest widely reported selfie deaths. Courtney Sanford. On April 29, 2014, 32-year-old Courtney Sanford from North Carolina got into her car and headed out on Interstate 85. It was a bright Tuesday morning with clear skies and light traffic. Courtney was driving alone, listening to music. Around 8:30 in the morning, one of her favorite songs came on. Happy by Pharrell Williams had been at the top of the charts for weeks. She felt a surge of happiness as the song played. She wanted to share the moment with friends on Facebook. While driving at highway speed, she picked up her phone from the passenger seat. She held it up and snapped a selfie, smiling at the camera. She posted the photo to Facebook with a caption about the song. Courtney was not done. She typed out a status update expressing how happy the song made her feel. Her fingers moved across the phone screen as she divided her attention between the device and the road. She hit post, and the update went live. For those few seconds, her eyes were on the phone instead of traffic ahead. Her car drifted left, crossing into the oncoming lane. By the time she looked up, she was already past the yellow center line. An approaching truck had no time to react. The two vehicles collided head-on at combined highway speeds. The impact was devastating. The car's engine block pushed backward into the passenger compartment. The fuel tank ruptured and caught fire. Within seconds, flames engulfed the wreckage. Emergency responders received the 911 call at the same minute as her last Facebook post. Fire crews raced to the scene, but the fire was too intense. By the time they extinguished the flames and extracted Courtney from the wreckage, she had died from the impact. The truck driver suffered injuries but survived. Police investigated and found no mechanical failures, no evidence of alcohol or drugs. They recovered Courtney's phone from the burned vehicle. The screen was still displaying her Facebook page. The crash happened in the seconds between posting and looking back at the road. Cliff selfie. On August 5th, 2014, a Polish couple in their 30s arrived at Cabo da Roca in Portugal with their two young children. The location is famous as the westernmost point of mainland Europe, where dramatic cliffs drop hundreds of feet to the Atlantic Ocean below. The family had traveled to Portugal for vacation. The clifftop area had safety barriers installed along dangerous sections. Warning signs cautioned visitors to stay behind the barriers. The drop from the cliff to the rocks and water below measured roughly 450 feet. The couple decided they wanted a family photo with the dramatic ocean backdrop. They approached another tourist and asked if he would take their picture. The tourist agreed. The couple then did something that alarmed the photographer and others nearby. They handed their children to the tourist to hold and crossed over the safety barrier. Multiple tourists shouted warnings at them to come back. The couple waved off the concerns and continued toward the cliff edge. They wanted the photo to show the full expanse of ocean without the barrier visible. They positioned themselves at the very edge of the cliff, backs to the ocean facing the camera. The ground near the edge consisted of loose soil and rock, eroded over centuries by wind and salt water. The couple stood side by side, smiling. One of them held up a phone to take a selfie while the tourist also prepared to photograph them. As they adjusted their position, one person took a small step backward. The ground beneath their feet gave way. The edge of the cliff crumbled under their combined weight. Both people fell together, dropping hundreds of feet through the air. They struck the jagged rocks at the base before waves pulled them into the ocean. Their children, standing with the stranger, witnessed their parents disappear over the edge. Screaming erupted from onlookers. The Portuguese Coast Guard was notified immediately. Rescue boats launched to search the waters below. Recovery teams rappelled down the rock face. After hours of searching, both bodies were recovered from the ocean. The fall and impact had killed them instantly. The children were taken into the care of other family members. Portuguese authorities investigated and ruled it accidental death caused by ground instability and failure to observe safety barriers. The barriers at Cabo da Roca were reinforced and extended further back from the edge. Mount Merapi. On May 3, 2015, a 21-year-old Indonesian man reached the crater rim of Mount Merapi on the island of Java. Merapi, which translates to Mountain of Fire, ranks as one of the most active volcanoes in Indonesia. Despite the danger, the volcano attracts hikers and tourists who want to see the crater up close. The man had hiked to the top specifically to take photos at the crater edge. Social media was full of dramatic shots from Merapi's rim, showing the massive crater with sulfurous steam rising from below. These photos regularly went viral, getting thousands of likes and shares. He walked along the rim trail, which had warning signs posted at intervals. The ground around an active volcano is unstable, with loose volcanic rock that shifts underfoot. He found a spot that offered a clear view into the crater. Steam and volcanic gases rose from vents far below. The man walked off the marked trail to get closer to the edge for a better photo angle. He set up his phone and prepared to take a selfie with the crater behind him. The composition was not quite right, so he backed up a few steps to fit more of the crater into the frame. His foot landed on loose rock at the very edge of the rim. The volcanic rock gave way immediately. He lost his balance and tried to catch himself, but there was nothing to grab. He fell backward into the crater, dropping approximately 200 feet down the interior slope. He tumbled and slid, striking the rocks repeatedly. Other hikers at the rim saw him fall and began shouting for help. Guides assessed the situation and determined a rescue was impossible. The interior of an active volcano is too dangerous for recovery teams to enter. Toxic gases, extreme heat, and unstable rock make it a death zone. Indonesian authorities confirmed they could not retrieve the body without risking more lives. The man died from the fall and impact with the crater walls. His body remained in Mount Merapi, too dangerous to recover. His family held a memorial service without any remains. Indonesian officials increased patrols on the crater rim trail and installed additional barriers. If you want to see more cases like this, make sure to subscribe to get your weekly dose of prevention before you end up on the next list.